Hi, welcome back to another episode of Rapid Results. We have the wonderful Taylor here. And in case you don't know who this amazing guy Taylor is, a little bit about him. He is the co-CEO and co-founder at Kinship. Prior to co-founding Kinship, Taylor worked at Athletes First, an NFL agency where he was responsible for marketing on behalf of NFL stars. Those included Aaron Rodgers, Clay Matthews, Deshaun Watson. From Athletes First, he transitioned to the digital marketing side of the influencer marketing space by building out the influencer department at Common Thread Collective. This is a growth agency mainly focusing on Facebook advertising. Here, he was responsible for creating influencer partnerships on behalf of 30 plus brands, running Facebook ads in tandem with influencers. His holistic learning and experience within this space has led him to a greater understanding of influencer marketing, and he hopes to share with others who aim to leverage influencers for the growth of their business. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Taylor. And Taylor, tell us, what is the biggest, most badass business accomplishment, professional accomplishment you're most proud of?
Yeah. Thank you for the intro too. Sorry for the lengthy bio I
You're
sent your
good.
way. Biggest badass. I think the one that we try to articulate most or put on display, and it's really to paint a story too. We like to say, hey, we've through our philosophy of influencer marketing, which I'm sure we'll dive into today. It's a little bit of a black ball, so would love listeners to be able to have actionable takeaways from this time to go implement them themselves. But it's for any stage of any business. And so, case studies wise, what we're most proud of, what we put, our stamp on, helping a brand go from a 0 to a million in 4 months through influencers alone. That's one. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, helping increase M&M's household name brand, big brand, euro sales increased by 457% through this influencer strategy. So it's for everyone at any stage of the business, startup, 0 to a million, 4 months, M&M's household name brand, everybody in between. So that's kind of like, if I was to brag about something, I'd put those on display for that reason alone, though.
Oh my gosh, that is so incredible. And are you even 30 yet?
I am 28.
Oh,
28. My
oh,
partner
me
is 30,
too.
though.
Represent
It's a
that
good year.
28
Come on.
club. Whoop, whoop. So that is so awesome and so crazy. And I like to take people on the superhero journey. So obviously you didn't wake up one day and then say, I'm going to push a button and then $1 million is going to appear into my client's account. Tell us more about the backstory journey, and you can like 2 to 5 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes about how you even got to learning what it takes to do these $1 million launches, 400% increases for some of the world's biggest brands. Like, tell us more about the journey and the history that led up to these accomplishments.
Yeah, great question. Started about 10 years ago. I was fortunate to play football, well, somewhat play. They gave me a jersey at UCLA. One of my teammates at the time, I knew quickly I probably wasn't playing the NFL, so I had to redirect my focus elsewhere to figure out what I wanted to do in my life. But fortunate for me, luck of the draw, P. Diddy's son played my position and was in my position group. So he's, somewhat of a B-list influencer himself. Did the typical college kid thing, started an events company with him as the face. He'd post on, organically on his Instagram. The algorithm on Instagram was a little different back then, could really push the needle. And every dollar of revenue that was generated was off the backs of him just posting. So not to say that's where I learned all my strategies and whatnot. That's just what sparked my interest in the
Mhm.
space. From there, from college, stopped doing the events company thing. Went to an NFL marketing agency, like you touched on. Think Aaron Rodgers, State Farm commercials. That's a lot of what we were doing. So very much so the
So you
macro.
you helped write some of the State Farm commercial stuff?
Put together those deals. Yeah, like that's what our agency was doing. At that time, it was
Wow.
my first gig. So like, am I spearheading that deal? No chance.
You're the
No.
guy who made discount double check happen?
That was me. You heard it here first. No, that was that term was not me. But
Well,
that's
you
just
still
kind of the
made
things
the
that we're
connection
doing.
though. Gotcha.
That's the sort of things that we're doing and helping alongside. But no, that was definitely not my idea.
Okay.
Um, Everyone would know that. It would be in my Twitter bio. Discount double check guy. But facilitating those deals, having a seat at that table, yes, 100%. From there, again, macro influencer type thing. And within that realm, you really lack attribution and visibility and attribution and generating ROI. So like, hey, these guys paid Aaron Rodgers $50,000 for a one-off tweet. who knows, what that tweet made them. Like attribution at that level, it's just they're selling stardom. They're not selling ROI. So you'd get a lot like a one-off customer. There wasn't many repeat customers unless it was like, the Procter and Gambles of the world where they have just an infinite budget, and this was just, one of the buckets they're throwing money at type thing where ROI wasn't as like I need it. Whereas a lot of startups, they do. And that's what I wanted to figure out. So from Athletes First transition to Common Thread Collective, growth marketing agency where attribution and visibility and attribution was everything, and coming alongside brands and helping them better understand, hey, through these efforts, this is what you're actually making off of it. So dove into that, started running paid media on Facebook, built out the influence department there 3 years ago. Common Thread Collective seed funded us, and started Kinship. And that's what brought us here today. So a lot of fails, a lot of learning, a lot of figuring out what doesn't work. Because influencer marketing, when people think about it, it's a black ball. They don't really know what to do with it. They don't really know how to make an effective strategy. And a lot of people just think of like Kim Kardashian promoting like Spanx or something. And that's just not it.
Really?
And they just think of it as vanity metrics, engagement, likes. That's also not it. This can be a definite acquisition channel for your brand that can generate real ROI. So I probably went longer than 5 minutes, a little bit long-winded, but that's the background. That's what brought us here today.
Surprisingly, that was only like 2 minutes.
Let's go.
but wow. So you mentioned you casually mentioned you got seed funding. So Common Thread Collective, is that a venture capitalist firm?
No, they're actually a growth agency. So growth agency in the sense they do like Facebook ads, Amazon, Google. They do studio content shoots. Just they're like in a marketing arm, like an AOR for other brands. Agency of
Gotcha.
record, AOR. I hate when people throw out just terms and acronyms.
Yeah, without people. Yeah. And so you made it sound like that's so casual. And I guess like, that's the thing about the startup world is some people are like, oh, never take investor money. Some people are like, oh, you have to take investor money. So how did you go about knowing, oh yeah, we got to go after investor money and we're going to get it? Tell us about that process.
No, I lucked into it, quite honestly. And if you talk to enough entrepreneurs that are actually honest, yeah, I lucked into it. So Common Thread Collective was the previous agency I worked at. So that's who ultimately seed funded us, right? And I was the entrepreneurial apprentice, quote unquote, to the managing partner at Common Thread Collective, Taylor Holiday. And yeah, after being under him, it was really like, hey, you should go do this. And he planted the idea of it. We recognized the opportunity in the space, and I was doing like I built out the influence department there, and I ran paid social, and through that we like saw a unique opportunity here to go launch a business. But he planted the seed of the idea, and then paired me up with my partner Cody, who was building out the influencer department at a brand called Kalo, doing incredibly well. Brought us together, seed funded us, and we were on our way. But as you heard, it wasn't like, hey, me, Cody, let's get together. Let's go pursue this. He planted the idea. He sent us the money and sent us on our way. So lucked into it. I'll say opportunity is just where luck and hard work meet. And I was fortunate to have that luck, though.
Yeah. Preparation meeting opportunity, 100%.
That's right. That's right.
And then what about you mentioned, so I like how it sounds like you're a very honest guy, you're authentic, you're genuine, you're real. And you mentioned, oh yeah, I did these accomplishments, but I also failed a lot. So what were some of those things that you quote unquote failed at when it came to influencer marketing, and things you wish you had learned earlier, what you learned didn't work?
Yeah. I mean, as you'll hear in our philosophy, we're not big proponents of like the pay for post model. We actually a lot of the time say it's a dead model. So lots of failures there. Like back in the Athletes First days, again, watching people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to these household name, players, and even honestly like tier 2 level names and B level players. You'll see that a lot of the time the ROI just wasn't there. And again, there wasn't repeat customers. They would come once, unless it was a Procter and Gamble household name brand that just was filling a bucket, and then they'd be off. And then even at the common thread, in the common thread days, a brand coming to work with us and, had a budget of 50K, whatever it is, to spend on influencers. And if it was on micro influencers, still the pay for post model just wouldn't pan out in a way where they would get the ROI that they're looking for from those organic posts going live. So, I mean, biggest learning lessons along the way: athletes first. Hey, I'm a much bigger proponent of micros instead of macros. Reason being, micro influencers have greater reach, greater engagement, greater conversion rate, and more niche audiences to align your brand with on a per follower basis. And when you work with 10 micro influencers in comparison to one macro, the aggregate following is the same, but you can get so much more out of that. And the price point is like 1/100th, 1/110th. So, and you get way more content to repurpose across all your channels. You get 10x. So that's a lesson I learned there from failing a lot, from just kind of wasting money on the people I was actually representing. So there was a lot of banging my head against the wall there. And then at Common Thread, realizing the real value of influencers is not a mechanism, using them as a mechanism of distribution. Organic is great, like them posting to their organic audience. That's awesome. And that's great. And there's a long tail effect to that, right? If you continuously do it, or organic can really bring in ROI. But their main value add is content creation, tapping on them as content creators to then repurpose that content across your own distribution handles. Or it can do a lot more for you, specifically like in Facebook ads per se, where creative is king. And that's really what's going to scale your efforts up. So long-winded answers, two main things: micro instead of macro, from failing a lot; content creation over, a mechanism of distribution as the main value add in working with these influencers too.
So what's the difference between content creation and distribution?
So when you think of an influencer, right, a lot of people think about, oh, this is so great. We're going to get Andrew Wise. He has 10,000 followers on Instagram, whatever it is, right? We're going to get this guy to post on his Instagram organically, or on his TikTok, or on his YouTube. And that distribution to his audience is going to be the value add that we're getting. It's going to be that post going to his audience. And from that audience seeing that post, people are going to purchase our product. When in reality, that's the cherry on top to us. That's the gravy. That's good to have. That's awesome. And again, there's a long tail effect to that as you continuously do that. Or if you onboard people to affiliate programs, like, you can really build out a robust, program that will lend itself to real ROI. But the biggest value add is, hey, Andrew, you just posted that content and distributed it to your audience. I'm going to take that content now, get usage rights to it, repurpose it to my audiences. And I can take that way further through like Facebook ads per se, where I'm not just limited to the amount of people that follow you. I can give it to Facebook, scale it to as many people as possible, where it's going to convert people at a much lower CPA. And that's just one example. You can repurpose in landing pages, TikTok ads, emails, across the board. We just see it most effective and go the furthest in Facebook ads.
Interesting. Well, and I saw your Twitter thread. You're doing are you going away from Facebook ads completely and focusing only on TikTok ads? Or are you still mixing and matching?
No. Both. Do both. And Facebook is still TikTok's like the sexy thing right now. Facebook is by far above and beyond more sophisticated as a machine learning system to find the cheapest customers for your business from a paid media perspective. On the organic side, I would never activate influencers on Facebook specifically. Facebook owns Instagram, still activate them on Instagram. But TikTok, organically speaking, is the best platform to activate influencers on, again, organically. So, I mean, most social media algorithms, like on Instagram per se, you have an audience of 100,000 followers. When you post, the algorithm limits you to, on average, reach like 10% of the people that follow you. And then 2 to 3% will engage. Whereas on TikTok, the algorithm's set up to just honor videos that are getting watched, like they're getting watched, they're getting viewed. And so you can not only surpass that 10% of your audience, and not even that, just that, your entire audience, and then go viral. So it's much more inclined to reach a lot more people on the organic side of things with TikTok's social media algorithm and how it's set up in comparison to anything else. I'm hitting you with some long-winded answers, Andrew. So
no, I love it
you
all.
to keep us on track.
No, we got time. Because I know, going through your website, like you said, influencer marketing is a hot topic. And I don't think, and obviously you said you're 10 years in this industry officially.
10 years in the space, yeah. I mean,
10 years.
started out with him in my room at 18. I think we launched that company at 19. So I'm 28 now. About to be 29.
Yeah. And like they say, it's what 10 years to be an overnight success, right? And so
That's right.
so it's cool to learn, yeah, the ins and outs. And I know I have a friend and colleague who has also influencer marketing agency, and I know, like you said, most people think that way, like, oh my gosh, if I pay LeBron James $20,000 to do one post about my product, like I'm gonna get rich. And you're
Right.
like, well,
No. No.
not quite. Well, and what about what are your thoughts on Cameo? You know what I'm talking about, right? When you pay like $200 for a celebrity to do like a 3-minute segment about your product. Have you seen any success stories with those? And I'm curious about your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I can just give you what it is we do. Because again, we're just not big proponents of pay for post. And
Yeah.
I kind of
Mhm.
categorize that into that group. And are there case studies for it? For sure. I'm not going to say like there aren't case studies within the pay for post model
There's
or
always
within this Cameo
exceptions.
example.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, I definitely think there's a place for it as well. But in the way that we initiate relationships with influencers, we're not big proponents of it. And so instead, we are big proponents of seeding, a philosophy of seeding. So, like, Andrew, if you're someone that I'm interested in building a relationship with that's on Cameo, and maybe that's an end goal that I ultimately want to do with you and activate you in that way, I'm going to start with
Mm.
seeding. And so when we do this with clients, like we identify and reach out to 500 influencers per month.
Wow.
And how we identify them, we use a platform called Tagger, just a great tool. If anybody wants to go use that, free tools, TikTok Creator Marketplace, Facebook Brand Collabs Manager, free tools right there. Um, Going after quantitative alignment there. Who's your customer? Align the influencers with that. Best video content creators. Once you have the people that you want to go after, the people that you're interested in, again, ultimately potentially want to do a Cameo video with, we reach out with a message not saying, hey, we want to pay you to post and do this thing on Cameo. We start with, hey, Andrew, think you're a great brand fit. Absolutely love the content you consistently put out. We think you'd love our product. We want to send it to you, no strings attached. And what we mean by that is we have no expectation of you to post whatsoever. Just send me your address. We'll get this right out to you. So very counter cultural. It's just not really in line with most of the marketplace, right? But of course, we do have expectations. Otherwise, this wouldn't be a service. Me and Andrew wouldn't be talking right now. This just want to be a thing. So when we do this, out of 500, typically a minimum of 100 opt in to receive product. And then out of the 100 that opt in to receive product, a minimum of 30 influencers end up posting of their own free will, free of cost, no contractual obligation, just because they loved you, your brand, your product, how you started the relationship. And they do so on average 2 to 3 times each. 30 influencers, 60 to 90 unique assets posted. You get usage rights to that and you repurpose into paid. This is where we say the pay for post model is dead. Any influencer marketing agency in the world where you want 30 influencers posting 60 to 90 assets in total, and you get usage rights to that content to repurpose into paid media or across your other channels, that's a 30K fee. You just got that for the cost of sending out 100 products. So unless your products are, the cogs of $300 or more, $300, I believe, times 130K, boom. That's the only way it's even equal, like an equal price point. And I would still recommend this strategy if your cogs are $300 because they're genuine advocates and this content's authentic. It's not transactional. There was no incentive for them to post outside of them just loving your product. And you want to identify people that genuinely do. Otherwise, it's just a fraudulent ecosystem. So another long-winded, but after we do that, then we'll do like a Cameo video. Hey, Andrew was one of these people that posted free of cost. He proved to be a genuine product adopter, lover. His content worked well organically. We repurposed it in paid media. It worked well there too. This guy's worth going the next step with and paying them to do that Cameo video. But then and only then. So there's just an order of operations, and made sure I wanted to touch on that lengthy
No,
operation
this is
before doing
great.
that.
So that's so fascinating that after you get the influencer to post the product for free, then you offer to pay them a separate Cameo video.
Yeah, it's just whatever we want to do next. To be honest, we don't play too much in the Cameo world.
Mm.
The biggest platform we're activating people on as of right now, where the biggest opportunity is TikTok. We're repurposing that content into Facebook ads. And so once someone proves to, like, we have this like pyramid, right? Start with seeding, Okay, you go up that pyramid, you go to organic post. They prove to post free of cost. They prove to be a genuine advocate. Okay, now we onboard them to, we get usage rights to their content, put it in paid media. How does their content perform in paid media? We onboard them to an affiliate program at that point too. They're already posting about you for free. Why wouldn't they want to make some money? It's kind of a no-brainer. And then from there, who's working best organically on the affiliate side of things? Who's working best in paid media content-wise? Okay, now we're at the part of the pyramid where we're at brand ambassador. Brand ambassador, now we're willing to pay money to activate them on, but we're probably looking to activate them on TikTok and YouTube on the organic side of things, and then continuously repurposing content to paid media on Facebook. So that's where a lot of our philosophy resides. That's where we think the biggest opportunities are and kind of the order of operations to it. So Cameo, I'm sure there are benefits, but it also goes to, we do this a lot of the time with micros. And then we scale up to macros because you gotta figure out what works before you're gonna invest that type of money. And I know you just already alluded to it. Cameo is super cheap, but still figure out what works for you before you go and try to put a face to your brand.
Yeah, 100%. And then I'm curious, and obviously you can share whatever you want, but what, from your side of things, like what does that pay look like? Do you get paid on percentage of sales? Do you get fee up front plus percentage of sales? As the owner of a company like this, like if someone wants to get into influencer marketing and start their own influencer marketing company, like how should they price their, how should they know how much to get paid and all that?
If you're an influencer or if you're a brand.
If you're another Taylor and you're like, and there's another 18-year-old kid who's like, I want to be exactly like Taylor, like how would they go about?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So always start, I mean, you're trying to build relationships in the right way, right? But you're ultimately you're trying to find people that are easy to work with, that aren't charging, an arm and a leg, are willing to grant usage rights for free. So ideally, you get all of the upfront stuff for free. Like, and again, when you reach out to 500, you'll typically end up with 30, 60 to 90 uniques. All of that is true. From there, though, again, the affiliate program, that's the first form of payment that's going out. That's step 2. And I would, in your compensation model of your affiliate program, offer something that's lofty, like go high. You want to stand out. Like the standard rate people offer is like 15%, with a day or 30-day, attribution window of what they get accredited to for sales. I would
And do you
bump
just
that.
trust that the brand you're working with, they'll pay you out of honesty, essentially?
Well, you set it up. So we recommend working with Refersion. That's like on the back end platform, and it's
It's called
automatic
what?
payments. It's called Refersion, Refeersion. And they have a link that's generated through Refersion, and it sets up automatic payments. So both parties have visibility into it. It's very transparent. So you get accredited your sales. But at the end of the day, we all know attribution can be a little bit of there might be some miss of attribution, especially post iOS 14 here. So that's also, something to keep in mind. You can afford to give them a lofty percentage. So I typically tell brands like, hey, give them where you break even. If that's 40%, if you can give 40%, like you're not going to break even realistically. You're discounting word of mouth that these people are doing, which is a ton. You're discounting the fact that this link is definitely missing attribution to sales that they're generating, and the time window of it, right? So whatever the time window is, they're generating sales there after that time window. So, and the biggest one is repeat purchasers. It's not taking into consideration them becoming repeat purchasers. It's not taking into consideration the lifetime value of that customer, just the average order value of the immediate purchase. So for all those reasons, I'm a big proponent, hot take, whatever you want to say, where you break even, I would give that percentage as a commission. You stand out because now they're going to be really incentivized to push you and your brand, instead of the other, brands and affiliate programs that are offering 15%. So I would start there as the first touch point of payment. Thereafter, again, they prove to be a top performer there in the affiliate program as well as in paid media. Now we get to the upfront payments. We can dive into that too, but kind of probably stop there until I just bleed your ears out completely.
No, you're totally good. So I'm just thinking. And walking through the process. So if I'm an 18-year-old Taylor, And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get into influencer marketing and build a business around this. There's a lamp where I'm sitting right now. I'm like, I'm going to start Googling top selling lamp companies in my area. Oh, boom, Jim's lamps. They sell for $30 a piece or whatever. I want to help him grow through influencer marketing. I then messaged Jim. I said, hey, Jim, I want to help you get an extra 100% in sales in the next 60 days. He's like, great. And then I'm like, all right, Jim, all I asked is for like a 15% commission, or you say 15% or 40% commission on sales.
What I recommend giving to these influencers, wherever the brand breaks even on first purchase, again, quote unquote, break even.
Oh, okay. So
What I don't
as
recommend doing is the standard like 15% market rate that influencers typically get from brands.
okay. So I'll go to Jim and then I'd say, hey, just so you know, the influencers we're going to work with, we're going to pay them 40% of sales that they help you with your lamp sales, essentially. So is that correct so far?
It's more so just saying, hey Jim, we're gonna pay out a percentage of sales where you technically are at break even on first purchase. So whatever that is, it's different for everyone based on the COGS and cost of delivery of the product, taxes, shipment, and all of the above. But within mind, you're actually not going to break even.
Yeah,
And just to
of
try to
course.
position yourself in a way that incentivizes these influencers to post more.
But then where would I get paid? Because the influencer gets 40%. Obviously, Jim makes money off the lamps. Where do I get paid out of all that?
Yeah, so we charge on just flat fees. You're paying us for our labor, so I would average out your time, dedicated to these projects. We get
Mm,
paid because we run paid media as well, so we get take like a percentage of spend there. But for like running our seeding campaigns, we're charging a flat fee. You get a team of 4. In the States, you get 5 to 10 contractors overseas, so you get 10 to 15 people on this thing, servicing you in this way to identify 500, handle communication with that 500, get the product out to these people, track organic posts, collect this content, get usage rights to that content, edit that content, and now we're going to launch it into paid media. So it's getting a team to manage that process A through Z. You're paying us for the labor that goes into this. For the cost of what it takes you to hire one employee to do it. Instead, you get 10 to 15 people to do it that live and breathe it every day. So I would charge on that because at the end of the day, if I'm giving advice to someone in my position, you don't know how well these campaigns do. It's not our philosophy. It's biased, obviously, but
mhm,
this is the best way to go about influencer marketing, in our opinion, to start relationships, to get the most bang for your buck. But it'll live and die by how good your product is at the end of the day.
mhm,
And so if it's for lack of a better word, shit product, like people aren't going to post about it. And so we're not going to be held reliable to how well your product converts when executing this process. If you want the most bang for your buck and within the realm of influencer marketing, we highly recommend going about it in this way. But we're not going to be tied to the performance that you get because of the product that you have. So I would not recommend it. On the paid media side of things, definitely recommend percentage of spend or percentage of revenue, whatever you guys are most comfortable with. But flat fees on the influencer side of things, without a doubt, and pay us for the time taken to execute and the labor going into it.
So that's interesting too. So you get paid the same whether they make $100 through
Yeah,
this or whether they make $1 million through all this.
the brand that we scaled 0 to $1 million and M&Ms, they paid us the exact same thing.
Wow.
And the brands that
Interesting.
didn't, and the brands that had not the best of products, and it didn't generate much sales at the end of the day, they all paid us the exact same.
Interesting. And I mean, so with the brands you work with, I mean, is it kind of like the venture capitalist world where they say like out of every 10 companies invested into, like there's only like 1 or 2 unicorns that really hit it out of the park? Or is everything pretty profitable and scalable? Or what are your, based on your experience working with companies, like what are the quote unquote success rates to, or like you said too, like how can you tell whether a company has a good product or not? How do you vet them from that way?
Well, I mean, I think regardless, you're going to hit the minimums, right? Unless there's been one scenario. It's kind of the obvious scenario too. if you just put yourself in this frame of mind, like you're going to get 30 influencers posting 60 to 90 unique assets when you send out 100 products. Those are like the minimums. Like we're doing this for Traeger right now. It's Traeger. It's a massive household name brand. People love Traeger. There's a lot of advocates out there that are like, if you get sent Traeger in the mail, free of cost, no strings attached, like you're pumped, right?
Yeah.
So their post rates are a lot higher. They get way more than 30 influencers posting 60 to 90 assets when we send out 100 products. That's kind of the minimum. So that's a win though, in any scenario. If you get that many assets organically posted about you by genuine product adopters, that's a dub. The value though, the immediate value and ROI comes from repurposing those 60 to 90 unique assets into paid media, where success rate, I'm appalled. Like I'm taken back if we don't outperform performance in the current status of that ad account when we implement 60 to 90 unique assets in there, which turns into well over 200 plus ads when you take into consideration all the iterations. That's 200 times like the amount of opportunities you have to find success in an ad account, where creative is the number one variable to find success. So if an ad account that we take over, that we come alongside, is currently running like 20 pieces of creative, and then we come in and put in 200 more pieces of creative, we just 10x their opportunity to find success. So conversion rate of like finding greater success and increasing performance, I'm appalled when that's the case. But the scenario, I'll give you like a failure story. The product that we came alongside and seeded with, and again, I would still recommend this approach though, if you care about influencer as a channel you want to find success in. It's a shirt that for men like that made you look slimmer when you went to the gym. What guy's going to post about that? Not me. I'm not posting that. I'm not going into the gym at 24 and saying, hey, don't I look slim in this shirt while I work out? You know, it's
Yeah,
just
you
kind
want
of
to
like
look
an obvious
huge.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like an obvious one
Yeah.
that probably won't work. So we weren't able to make as big of a splash there. But again, you still should start the relationship in that way with people that you care about, that you ultimately want to be advocates of your product and your brand.
So do you ever, after learning from that shirt story, like do you turn down clients by saying, sorry, your product, like we don't want you to lose money working with us, or how do you approach that?
No. Because they're not losing money. They're just not hitting those minimums, right? Like in that scenario, I think this person probably had like 5 influencers post 10 to 15 pieces of content. But it makes
Rather than
sense.
30 to 90.
It's just going about it to set proper expectations. But what I'll say is if they want to do the pay for post model to get 5 influencers to post, 10 assets to 15 assets, that's still for them, especially when influencers are less, if it's a product that's like less desirable to post about, their rates are going to be higher. So 5 influencers posting 10 to 15 assets could go from $5,000 to $10,000. And we still got that through sending out, there's less to opt into with those kind of products. So we probably sent out 50 products times the COGS. If it's like $20, yeah, I mean, still ends up being cheaper at the end of the day. And again, they're genuine, they're authentic. So it's still the better option. It's just setting proper expectations, and you're not going to get as many posts. And like the Viagras of the world, right? Or,
Yeah.
ED, erectile dysfunction. Like we used to, in the beginning, had a couple of those brands. It's just like, this is miserable. And back in the day, we would actually still try to, do campaigns where we're paying people to post. You had to search far and wide to people even willing to take a lot of money to pay. So it's still the better option, seeding. You'll get it way more cost effectively, save a lot more time, and build genuine relationships.
Interesting. So you guys will still work with anyone per se, but you let them know like the expectations up front, like, hey, just so you know, like here's what to expect based on what we believe about your product. And then
Yeah.
what else was I
Home
gonna
run.
ask you about too?
I think you asked which products work best though. Home runs. In
Mhm.
any product for, where your customer, one of your customers is between, it's a female between the ages of 25 and 40, home run. I mean, that not only is the number one customer in the world, right? Like the most buying power in the world, but that's the biggest pool of like quality content creators in the world too. So aligning your brand with that audience, with those types of influencers, is a home run. So any products for that is great. I would say consumables work really well. We see really high opt-in, and really high numbers for post rates, with like beverage and food and beverage, consumables, wearables, really easy to post. Like if they're wearing a shirt, wearing pants, wearing shoes, wearing sunglasses, earrings, jewelry, wearables are just easily like, hey, let's take a selfie. Very organically, natural to spontaneously post about it. Fitness equipment, at-home fitness equipment does really well. At-home decor. I mean, you just kind of align it with what products are working really well in e-commerce in general. A lot of the time, it's very similar.
Yeah, and when you're working with all these influencers and you're building these relationships, like, do you already have like a roster of like go-to influencers who like love working with you? They're like, Taylor, please send me any and all products, and I promise I'll post. Like, and is that part of your negotiating when you're working with possible brands and stuff? Tell us about like those influence relationships that are built and how you leverage those even after you work with them.
Yeah. We actually plant our flag in somewhat of an opposite message that we're articulating. So a lot of time we actually say it's kind of a red flag when someone that specializes in influencer marketing says they have a talent roster. Why is that a red flag? The reason that's a red flag is the conflict of interest. I'm no longer going after who's best for your brand. I'm pushing who's best for my talent roster and who can get me a commission. It kind of goes back to my athletes' first days. If someone was like, Pepsi comes to us from Procter and Gamble, or not Procter and Gamble, from Pepsi, whatever. They come and say, hey, we want to work with 5 NFL players. I'm not pitching the best fit for them across the entire NFL. I'm pitching the NFL players that I represent to try to get them in their campaign. So it's a red flag. It's a conflict of interest. So have we worked with literally over 100,000 influencers? Yes, we built relationships for brands with over 100,000 influencers. We're working with 30 clients, and we identify and reach out to 500 per month. So it's over 10,000 per month. And those are just whoever the best fit for that brand is at that time. So on the kickoff calls with brands, we're going after who is your customer. What's the quantitative data around that? Let's go find 500 influencers that align with that best. Now, is that to say, there aren't some repeat people within it? Sure, but only if it completely aligns with the brand criteria. And it's honestly by accident. We don't have like this side set of people. This person posted about this brand, and they said anytime we see them, they'll post about it, because it's going against what we preach. At the end of the day, that's inauthentic. They are just posting because we're sending them product. It becomes transactional at that point, right? So no, in short, we don't do that.
Interesting. No, I just so I do like these long-winded answers just because it helps us break down everything. And going backwards again, tell us the story of like getting like your first client, and then being able to scale to now working with 30 clients at a time. That's incredible. Like, did it take 5 months to get your first client and then 2 years to get 3 clients? Like, what's that journey been like?
Yeah. Well, going back to the beginning, again, sort of lucked into this with Common Thread Collective seed funding us. In the very beginning, we were able to get clients from Common Thread. So they would throw us clients, helped us get our start. So not only did they seed fund us, but they, gave us our first set of clients to work with to get our feet wet. But for the first year, it's survival mode still. At the end of the day, we're only going to get so much. We're only get fed so much by the people that's helped us get our launch. So for the first month, it was very much so survival mode, and just looking at our cash flow forecast a month out and be like, oh well, we only got 1 more month of revenue before we die here. So I would say, to be honest, COVID, when COVID hit, it was a terrible time, obviously, for so many. But within our line of work, we were fortunate enough to benefit from it.
Yeah.
Where it definitely expedited e-commerce taking off 10x, and where e-commerce takes off, influencer marketing takes off. So that really benefited us. It skyrocketed our business. Then, a year and a half ago, we hired employee 1. A couple months after that, we hired employee 2. 3 months after that, we, created our first team of 4. Now we have teams of 4 to service clients. And then January this year, we hired our second team of 4, hired someone for sales. And now we have 2 teams of 4, salesperson, my partner and I, team of 11. So that's kind of been the journey. But definitely a long road from survival mode to being in where we're at today.
Yeah, and how did you learn? So sorry, what's it called? Growth Thread Collective?
Common Thread Collective.
Common Thread Collective. So are they still actively involved in your guys' business with like mentorship and helping out and referring clients even?
Great question. Actively involved? No, not as a company. Their involvement was just seed funding us. Referring clients? No. It was very much so, just very much in the beginning. Do we have a couple shared clients time here and there? Sure. But it's not like they're not a pipeline for us by any means. That said, the managing partner at Common Thread, my biggest mentor for sure, Taylor Holiday, without a doubt. And I'm in consistent conversation with him and communication with him, but he's like a member of our board per se, and we go to him for counsel, and just life in general. I'm a big proponent of mentors, and he's one of my biggest ones. So in that way, there's a lot of involvement.
Because I was going to ask, how do you know what activities and roles you need to be doing and thinking about each day versus what you need to hire first versus what you need to start allocating and when to start doing that? Like, how do you figure out that sequence to know, okay, so now it's us two together. Now we got to hire this person so I can only focus on this. And I'm curious about that.
That's good. Yeah. Still figuring it out, right? I think that's the $1 million question for an entrepreneur, because you're not reporting to someone that's telling you this is where your time needs to go and this is what you need to get done. You're the one determining that from the top down. What are our yearly goals? Okay, from our yearly goals, what's our 6-month goal? What's our 3-month goal? Our month goal, weekly, daily, going from starting with the end in mind and working your way backwards and reverse engineering that. And then you have to be responsible doing, every member of your team. How does that, work towards the overarching goal? You're the one determining that, and how you allocate people towards those tasks and how you allocate time and resources towards those tasks. That's hard. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy. I think I just gave you the framework that I work off of a little bit and how I go about resolving it. But hiring wise, we knew right away. I'll give you the first hire. My partner and I, we have to detach ourselves at some point from the client delivery, like the service delivery, in the day-to-day weeds. Otherwise, we're never going to be able to grow this. If we had the vision of, hey, we just want it to be me and Cody, we're doing influencer marketing campaigns for a couple clients, and we're like almost freelancers, partner freelancers. Sure, that's the approach. But if you want to grow a business, you need to remove yourself from the client delivery service. Be able to grow the business, be able to hire for the business. Those are become the biggest two things: growing the business from a sales perspective and hiring for the business to put the parts in place to service the client service delivery. So a lot of our time was removed from client service delivery. We hired for that team of 4. Started with one person servicing it. Very overwhelming, obviously. Went to 2, still very overwhelming. Went to 4, perfect harmony, great. But that's what enabled us to eliminate fires, have quality control. It was a great service. No one was overwhelmed. We were at wasn't getting to capacity at bandwidth, and it allowed Cody and I to go grow the business at that point. So getting yourself out of the weeds.
Yeah, and it sounds like it sounds like, I guess that experience process is just trial and error, and just like, oh my gosh, we have a bunch of new clients. Sure. I can't do this on our own. Like, we got to hire someone, and then cross your fingers that new hire is a good enough fit for the long term and short term kind of thing.
For sure, lots of trial and error.
Yeah, and going back on your story too, is there any? Obviously, entrepreneurship is not an easy road. What is that driving force that inspires you to stay resilient, be a problem solver, push through the tough times? Like, what do you think helps contribute to that mindset and that attitude that you bring to the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. For me, I can't see it any other way. I think once you get a taste of it as well, while you're your own boss, you're casting the vision for the company, and this is becoming your baby. Like, I can't imagine going to an office 9 to 5 working for somebody else. So if you have an opportunity, if you have an idea, take it. I mean, for me, again, as well, like, I was 24 at the time, and you're going to get a skill set that no one else has. So if you're young, especially, like, why not? Your resume is going to look way better by going and trying to fail at a business than that next opportunity at whatever it is. You're going to learn way more. It's going to look better on your resume, all the above. And realistically, anybody listening to this, I don't know where your audience is, but if you're in the United States, like we are part of the 1%, you have a safety net to a certain degree. I don't want to speak for everyone too much. I hope that's not offensive, but you can't, if you want to do this, take the jump, take the leap. Don't be scared. Try and fail. Worst case scenario, you go and have to apply to other jobs, but your resume does look a little bit sweeter. When someone has applied to a job at Kinship and they have experience of going and trying and failing at launching a business, those guys jump to the top without a doubt. I want to hear about that experience because it's valuable. We're a startup ourselves, so we're a small company. If they understand what that looks like, that's a leg up on the competition. So I would say go do it, even if you think you might fail.
Yeah, and obviously with entrepreneurship too, the journey is lots of highs and lows.
Sure.
When what do you, is there any moments for you so far that you're like, oh, we've made it, like we finally we're at the finances we want to be at, got the consistency of clients we want to be at? Like, is there any moments where you're like sipping champagne in a penthouse suite overlooking a city and you're like, oh, we did it, kind of thing? Or yeah, what's that moment been like in your business, or when you had that feeling of fulfillment and then satisfaction, essentially?
Yeah, I mean, there's different types, right? There's like when we signed M&M's, like this massive household name brand, and we won an award for best use of news channel on TikTok through our campaign with them through M&M's and influencer. One, just signing them and then winning an award for the campaign we executed for them was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Because the majority of the brands we are working with are like, 5 million to 30 million D2C e-commerce brands. So not small, direct to consumer. So that's where a majority of the brands are, not like M&M's is $1 billion brand. So that's like kind of the flex one, but it's real. Like that was, whoa, that's pretty neat. Another one was when we generated $1 million in revenue in a year. That was like a big moment. My partner and I went and got out and like had a tomahawk steak for the first time ever.
Nice.
We're big on celebrating for sure. But I would say like the biggest ones are just seeing your employees grow. I'm a big proponent of like, I'm looking for who's the hardest worker, who's the most eager to learn, who's humble, and who's looking to be a sponge and just loves the grind. And they're looking just to learn. Seeing those people come in with like even no experience, because we're in influencer marketing, right? It's a new space and we do things differently than a majority of the space. So I just want people that are ready to work, that are eager to learn, and are hungry. And so seeing those people, even if they don't have much background experience in marketing or what it is we do, seeing those people become and get elevated within the walls of Kinship is really cool. So the people that we hire a lot of the time, like they're former teachers or they come from a different background, and then seeing them come what they ultimately do become is pretty neat.
Yeah. Is there a favorite question you like to ask people in the interview process to help vet them and see that they're a good fit for the company?
I typically ask people, this is one of them comes to mind, but a lot of the questions are geared towards this thing, like trying to get a better understanding. Are you eager to learn? Are you humble? Are you a hard worker? One question that can stump a lot of people, and it's very telling, is like, hey, when was the last time you deferred credit? Like where you deserve credit, but you gave to somebody else? And just hearing people's answers or seeing like the delay, how long do they need to think about this to try to find something to say here? It's very telling. And so that will quickly tell you like how much of a teammate they are, because we work in teams of 4, how much of a teammate they are, how good would they be to work with, and are they humble at the end of the day? So that's a question that can be very telling, that I enjoy hearing people speak on.
I love it. And then congratulations, by the way, on reaching that 7-figure revenue for a year. That's definitely a very big deal.
Thank you. Yeah.
What does it take to go from a 5-figure business to a 6-figure to a 7-figure business? For those listening, I'm sure they're like, how do I do this?
Delegation, biggest thing for sure. Let go of the wheel. You're going to struggle with, I think that's for sure the biggest thing. And the biggest struggle is thinking I'm the only one that can do this. That's a crutch. That's a lie. If anything, that's your own fear saying you're not a good enough teacher to offboard this to somebody else.
Mm.
That's the fear there. And it can be real, and you need to work on that. But figuring out, putting in place, what is the process A through Z, writing out like SOPs, like standardized operating procedures, like checklists for tasks. Like, how do you service your client? What is everything A through Z? What are you doing? How can you get this offboarded? Anything that you're spending time with, you should be thinking about, how could I offboard this? And ultimately doing so. And that's kind of like the flow of an entrepreneur, right? You do the important tasks, you build out a flow, you offboard it, rinse to repeat. Next thing, what's most important? You need to get in the habit of doing that.
Well, yeah, what kind of tools and do you use for SOPs and stuff like that?
It's a great question. Right now, it's just kind of like in Google Sheets. We're transitioning out of that though, and I'll have to keep you posted on it. But right now, just Google Sheets.
Interesting. Nice and simple, huh?
Big Google Sheets guy. Yeah.
Even for CRM tracking as well?
Depending what the CRM is, like we have CRMs for influencer, like internal for our campaigns and whatnot, and then we have like HubSpot for CRM for sales. So we have different CRMs for those sorts of things and SOPs like input into those. But where there isn't a platform just for like any and all procedures, Google, like the Google G Suite docs and sheets will be the go-to.
Gotcha. And then I'm curious too. I'd love to hear the story of how you got on LeBron James' finger. Was that he just happened to be one of the influencers who said yes to selling him a free product, or what's that story?
Yeah, that's good. So my partner was actually at All-Star Weekend. My partner Cody, and it was actually on behalf of the brand that he used to work for at Kalo. Was at All-Star Weekend, the NBA All-Star Weekend, and he built a relationship with Isaiah Thomas. So for those who don't know the NBA, you may know who Isaiah Thomas is.
The
He had a
new one or
couple
the old one?
old one. So he had a couple
Okay.
years where he was an All-Star.
Mhm.
Oh wait, no, not super. New one, I guess. He's old now, though. Not the Pistons Isaiah Thomas. The Isaiah
This
Thomas that just had like a quick stint on the Lakers, but is like basically retired at
gotcha,
this
like you're
point.
5'4" or 5'8" or whatever. Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So he was on
Mhm.
the Cavs at the time. He was LeBron James' teammate, and he was a fan of Kalo. He was one of the guys that they had built a relationship with through seeding, and so he just saw him at the All-Star Weekend, and he basically just gave him like, "Here's a box of Kalo rings if you want to pass it out to friends." And so it was basically like a locker room drop. Then Isaiah Thomas passed it out to everybody on the Cavs, all his teammates. LeBron James started wearing one. They saw that, hey, this guy's actually talking about it and he's wearing it. Or he's not like talking about it, but hey, they can see in his stories, this guy's wearing a Kalo silicone wedding ring. Oh my goodness. Built a custom ring for him specifically, like James Gang Kalo ring, made it super custom for him, sent it out to him. And then he was wearing it literally on the day when he signed with the Lakers. Like it just became a very organic thing all through seeding, but it was like a roundabout way. And we have different stories like that too with like with another brand, Animal House Fitness, the people we scaled 0 to 1 million. Like Joe Rogan's organically talked on his podcast about Animal House Fitness 4 times for free because one of the influencers we started a relationship with through seeding ended up talking about it. Joe Rogan follows this guy. He's on Joe Rogan's podcast, and now Joe Rogan's a massive fan of this brand, talking about it for free organically just because seeding ultimately got and touched him as like a greater sphere of influence from those efforts. So there's a bunch of those stories, but that's how LeBron James happened. Joe Rogan's another one of those stories, but there's more for sure.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating that I love your tagline, your website, that we measure our success based on sales, not on likes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you track all those sales through reversion, and you make sure, and obviously, if influencers in a certain niche are going to talk about a product, people are eager to buy all the time anyways. That's why you can pretty much quote unquote guarantee sales, because why wouldn't they buy from their favorite influencer a product that makes sense, essentially, right?
Yeah, a majority of the time when we're saying we're judged on sales and not likes, those sales are coming from paid media. Yes, 100% track your sales on the organic side of things from affiliate.
Mm.
But again, organic is only going to give you so much ROI. If someone comes in and talks to you and tries to pitch you as a brand. Now they're going to make you all this money off this person posting product, and it's going to get a 4x run. Because that happens from time to time. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's just not what these platforms are set up to do on the organic side of things. They're not set to optimize for conversions. They're set to optimize for engagement, for likes, for views, for impressions, those sorts of things. So when we say we are judged on sales, not likes, that's from repurposing that content into paid media, where we can have very clear visibility into, what is this actually generating ROI wise and revenue wise, sales wise for the business. And again, goes back to, we view the biggest value add of influencers being content creators and the content that we're repurposing into paid media.
Oh, that makes sense. Very interesting. And then the other question I had was, how do you make sure to consistently surround yourself with the right people to motivate you, keep you humble, keep you confident? I think I've heard like the 3 different people or 2 different people spend time with. There's the people who like are similar level of you, people who are like 1 step above you, and then like 3 steps above you. Curious your philosophy approach to how you cultivate your circle, I should say.
Yeah, very similar to that line of thought. Find people that are 5-10 years ahead of you. And again, very fortunate to have Taylor Holiday, common thread collective in my life. He runs an agency that is about 5 years ahead of us. So being able to consistently meet with him is a massive benefit. And if you can find someone that you aspire to pursue a similar path, 100% get that person in your circle, pay to go to lunch with them, pay to bring a coffee, make it as seamless as possible for that person to meet with you. They're the one providing you with value. So find those people. A great way to find those people, I would say, is honestly Twitter. It's how Andrew and I connected. Twitter has been an incredible place to network with incredibly bright minds and get connected with people. I would say far more than honestly LinkedIn at this point, especially within the e-commerce space. It's just a hotbed with just bright minds. So I would just message people, see if they would want to hop on, talk shop, just to get to know one another. A lot of people are actively looking to do that. Find people that are at the same stage of you, that you're shoulder to shoulder with, that you can just respect their opinion. It may not be someone that's like pouring into you and like is your mentor, but hey, someone that's at the same stage of life as you, at the same stage of business as you, invaluable to hear what they're going through and share what you're going through, how you guys are counteracting problems, issues, overcoming. And then I would highly recommend getting mentees as well. Who are you pouring into? Big proponent of being generous with your time and giving back and pouring into people that are up and coming, because that's what it's all about, right? If someone's going to do it for me, you got to do it for someone else.
But yeah, so I guess that's a third level, is people who are quote unquote not at your professional level yet, to help mentor them and pay it forward essentially. So I love that. Like, are you signing up for any programs the way you do that? Are you just kind of based on who reaches out to you, or how do you get mentees?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually looking for kind of the next set. In the past, it's just been connected from people. This guy's trying to learn how to go about this. Would you be willing to meet with them? And just being intentional about building a longer term relationship outside of that, like one-off meeting. Twitter, again, another place. There's a bunch of people always looking to learn. So that's been a great place for me to be able to connect with people who are interested in what it is we do here at Kinship. Honestly, the last person that I mentored, apologies, we ended up hiring the person. So definitely didn't go in with that intention. It just happened by happenstance. But I was like, well, you really know exactly what it is we do and how we do it. And we've been doing this for 6 months. We just had this job opening. So it ended up playing out that way the last time around. But got to be more intentional about finding these people, and Twitter is a great place to do it.
No, 100%. And like you mentioned too, I love how we connected on Twitter and just able to forge that relationship and have that shared experience. So a few questions left here. What do you think are the non-negotiables, either mindsets or actions, in order to be a successful entrepreneur?
Mindset, get used to no. Not get used to it in the sense of like no's okay or no's acceptable, because you need to actually have that grit to like get them to say yes and push back against no's. But more so just like emotionally detach yourself from no's. You're gonna get a lot of them, especially in the beginning. So it's just all about reps. Get another rep, get another rep. Don't sulk and like sit and like, oh my gosh, they said no. And not just counting like your emotions. But if you're going to be successful, you need to get used to rejection. You got to get used to failure. Failure is definitely the birthplace of success. Like, you're going to fail a lot more than that successful point. I mean, and that's probably the most oversaturated like line, but it's true. Like, you need to be willing to fail. You're going to fail, trial and error, throw yourself on the fire, figure out what works. Because it's going to be a lot of that. And that's got to be the mindset.
Oh, 100%. And then as a successful entrepreneur, like, what gets you out of bed every morning? Like, what's your mission and vision statement that gets you like fired up about each day?
Yeah, mission statement of kinship is we exist to create belonging so that each story is celebrated. So honestly, I see that a lot of the time with our employees. So our employees really is what gets me up and going. Obviously, the clients and like finding success for clients, that's like intoxicating for sure. Like, that's fun. But what keeps you going and casting vision for the future? Ultimately, I'm not going to know what's going on with clients. Ultimately, like, if we get to where we want to go, partners won't have the bandwidth to understand that client is currently doing this. So that can't be what gets me going. And what it really does, and what's the most fulfilling, is employee growth, seeing and identifying their gifts and talents and extracting them and amplifying them.
No, 100%. And then if people were listening to this whole interview, what would be the one takeaway you want them to have based on the things that we've talked about?
Well, let me just ask you this question. Audience wise, it sounds like majority of the time the audience is upcoming and aspiring entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, biggest thing to take away, go for it. I would say, if you have the opportunity, if you have the idea, go for it. Don't be scared to fail. Because worst case scenario, it doesn't work. That experience is invaluable. And will look good on a resume. And honestly, if you fail, come apply for kinship. If you need the money, like, that looks good to people that are hiring. I know that for certain for a lot of people. I would rather take that than a master's degree from somewhere. That could be controversial. That can be a hot take. But you have live experience. That person does not. And they're learning from someone that a majority of the time doesn't have live experience, and it's outdated experience probably in the current ecosystem that we're living in. So don't be afraid, go and do it. And if you find success, just know you're going to fail a lot, continue to fail. You're getting closer to winning. So go for it, fail, you'll ultimately win one way or another.
Well, and speaking of master's degrees, so I take it you did end up graduating from UCLA?
I did, yeah.
Like let's see, you guess, master's in marketing, minor in business.
I didn't get my master's. No, so it's
I
also
mean,
biased.
bachelor's in marketing and minor in business.
So I actually was planning on going to law school because my initial path was become an agent in the NFL. That's where I started on the NFL marketing side of things. So all my internships throughout college were on the marketing side of things, because the perfect dynamic for an NFL agent is marketing, but schooling is law. So I was a political science major, but all my jobs were marketing roles, because that was kind of like the perfect mixture for pursuing that. But then it was just, I hated it, and just kept pursuing marketing, and that's where we ended up today.
No, that's so interesting because, like, I know, yeah, the topic of college keeps being like a hotter and hotter topic. Like, is it worth it? Do I really need to go? Do I need to spend all this money? Where I'm sure you would say, well, if you took that, 100 grand or 200 grand and put it towards business mentorship or online courses, how to get rich, like, it's probably better well spent. But at the same time, sounds like your college connections also really propelled you forward a
Oh,
lot
without a
too.
doubt. Without a doubt.
So I'm
But
curious your overall thoughts on college and things like that. And obviously UCLA is a very good college to go to and get into, so I'm sure that helped too. But just curious what you would tell aspiring college students or current college students about how to best approach college professionally.
this is his own podcast.
It is. It is.
I'll say this. I'm looking to build a pipeline of hiring out of high school. So I'd rather get my hands on people earlier, and mold the way that they're thinking about these sorts of things earlier. Like, I'm looking at where you worked last. What did you do there in comparison to what did you major in?
Mhm.
I'm personally giving you what I'm looking at. This is very subjective. This is very different than a lot of people. Sure. But like, even I'm thinking about, I'm getting married in August, and then,
Oh,
we'll start.
congrats.
Thank you. Thank you. But then you start thinking about your family, your kids. And I'm very much so on, like, the biggest thing that I'm gonna have my kids do is I'm just gonna send them to internships where they're actually doing things too. It's not like checking a box, I got a good internship.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about that way more than where do I want them to go to college. Obviously, if you're coming to a doctor or something like that, like, higher education is a must. But for business, I'm thinking internships way more than education. Where are they getting live experience of running a business? Like, school didn't even teach you how to write a check. Like, on the football team, it was unbelievable. We didn't leave college, and our football team, you don't know what a 401k is. You don't know what all these sorts of, how to write a check. They don't teach you these basic things. It's unbelievable. It's not tangible, real live experience. So you're getting probably one side of the spectrum. You're not probably, you are. But I'm just showing you what I value more. Um, it's just live experience. I want to know where you did, where you worked, what did you do last? Why does it a fit for me as an employer at Kinship? And a lot of time, that's, no one learns influencer marketing in college right now. It's not a thing.
Really? I'm surprised it's not a
There's a
class.
couple, like,
Okay. Yeah.
extracurricular, like,
Yeah.
courses, but it's
Mhm.
not like, it's very high level. It's a lot of not of the things that we even, like, believe in, so it's outdated too. But yeah, what they're learning there is not what we're doing here, so it's just not an alignment.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I wish I had learned earlier too about the college experience, is that understanding that it's not about what you learn in college, unless of course it applies to what you want to do, but learning how to learn, like what works, how to best
Yes,
optimize things.
that's very true. Learning how to
Yeah,
that's 100% true, but can you do that elsewhere where you're learning something more valuable? Um, But I 100% say that about my time at UCLA. I learned how to learn, and I learned how to
yes.
work 100%.
And learning how to network too. I mean, my buddy, he went to elite music school, and because he networked with some of the top music engineer professors, he got a full-time job right out of college, probably getting double, triple what most people are getting paid. And the answer is you can get it done after high school, but I mean, but I guess my take on it would be get as many scholarships as possible and choose a school that makes the most sense. Like, I went to Oregon. We had the top advertising school in the country. So I'm like, all right, might as well advertise, or might as well major in advertising. But it doesn't mean I'm in the advertising field now, but it was good to learn from the best of the best and also make a
Right.
lot of connections too. But I also agree too, you can't just waste a bunch of money and party and expect it to work out
For
just
sure.
because of paper.
Right,
Life doesn't work
and
that way.
without a doubt, and I genuinely, if I map out the trajectory of my life, I would not be here today without UCLA. That's what got me
Mhm.
from point A to point B to point C to ultimate Kinship. But I just think I just think the schooling system will look incredibly different in 20 years, and there
Oh
needs
yeah.
to be different networking tools for people, which I think is already happening. Twitter, it's crazy. You can get a college education and meet more people on Twitter in a day than you would at school, in, if you go about it the right way. Um, I just think that's going to evolve, and it will continue to evolve in incredible ways for people across the world to find opportunities. And it's going to open up the talent pool as well, more and more, as it already has, to people that deserve to have the job and the position. So I'm interested to see what the future holds. It's hard to honestly envision 20 years down the line for kids, because I think it's just going to look drastically different.
Are you going to do homeschool out of curiosity, or do you think you might make your own school, or private school, or any thoughts about that?
So my fiance actually is a children's teacher, so we probably will
Oh,
homeschool initially, but definitely want to get them into public schools, private schools, whatever it is at the time. I was a public school kid, so more so gearing towards that, but just get them acclimated and um, networking already. But probably initially homeschooling.
that makes sense. All right, we have a couple questions left here. Taylor, this has been amazing and insightful. Thank you so much for diving deep and not holding back on like saying, no, Andrew, this is actually what it takes. Here's what's worked for us. Here's what hasn't worked. And thank you for sharing the numbers and how you go about things. For people listening in, what's the best way they can contact you and get a hold of you and inquire about businesses, mentorship, menteeship, working with you, learning with you, hosting you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Kinship.co, KYNSHIP.co, company website, and then Twitter is another great resource as well. That's again where Andrew and I were able to connect initially and talk shop. But Taylor Lagace on Twitter. My partner Cody Wittig is another great person to follow, and is also on Twitter. But we're consistently putting out a lot of content there, and checking DMs to connect with people. So yeah, those two places.
Love it. And then final question: is there anything else you wish I had asked you about, or any final parting thoughts that you want to say to people looking for rapid results in their life?
No, man. Interesting to hear you went to Oregon, though. We were getting our ass waxed in football every year to get to Oregon.
Yes, we have football and track, and sometimes our basketball team does well. Peyton Pritchard,
you guys had some
playing
good
finals
years
right now. Yeah, exactly.
You guys had some good years for sure. So you guys taxed my ass for a while there. So thanks, but no thanks to you on that front, I guess, is my final comment. But no, it was great to be on, man, and I appreciate you having me. Appreciate the time.
No, you're very welcome. Well, this has been Taylor, everyone. Make sure to check him out on Twitter and kinship.co. Definitely, I'm personally listened to this episode a few times with all the value drops that were offered. And with that said, we'll see you all next week. Cheers, everyone.